Good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome once again to Happy Hours of Coaching. I'm very excited to have Victor Loke from Singapore, and he has actually agreed to grace this occasion. What do I tell about Victor, right? I mean, a coaching guru, if I were to say, someone who's very passionate about coaching. He's ICF PCC, so I'm sure he brings in a lot of coaching knowledge to the forte. And yes, I mean, he has been in the agile coaching space also for a pretty long time. And yeah, I mean, more than talking about Victor, I think I will leave it to Victor to talk more about himself and yeah, introduce to everyone. Yeah, over to you, Victor. This entire session is yours. And once again, thanks for agreeing on this time zone, which is not a very comfortable time zone for you. I know it is not a comfortable time for you, but still you agreed for it. So really appreciate you. Yeah. So over to you, Victor.
Thank you, Ashutosh. Thanks for inviting me to your happy hour coaching. It is a pleasure to be here with the Agile Thought Leader group, right? I believe. And no worries at all. It's a Friday, so I'm good to stay for the night. And thank you for having me. As Ashutosh mentioned, I am Victor, and I'm dialing in from Singapore. I have been in multiple agile roles for about 15 years now, starting off as a developer, interestingly, before moving on to a scrum master, occasionally being product owner, and then eventually being an agile coach where I am today. I do have slides. However, I do think there is a lot of value in having a conversation with the attendees because I'm really keen to hear everyone's challenges and personal and very real challenges that you face, whether at work or in your community around Agile or Scrum or anything related to coaching. And it's actually quite a relief, if you will, for me to be talking about coaching again with a group of coaches in a coaching community. And I really look forward to a great conversation this evening. All right. So I'll just do a quick slide sharing before inviting everyone to participate. Sorry, Ashutosh, could you grant me screen sharing privileges? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll do that. Just give me a minute. Yes, can you try it now?
Yes, I believe I can do that now.
Yeah, you can do it now. Yeah.
Power off.
My screen.
Yes, we can see. We can see the screen.
Lovely. All right. So today I'm going to talk mainly about team coaching, as the title would suggest. However, as we do know, our coaching interventions in organizations rarely are limited to the team level. And so therefore, I would be speaking mostly to the Scrum Masters and Agile coaches, and perhaps some of the product owners who also serve as product coaches in your organizations. All right. And as Ashutosh briefly mentioned, I am an ICF Professional Certified Coach. I'm also a Scrum Alliance Certified Team Coach. And I run my own enterprise agility and consulting practice in Singapore called Visionary Agility. I'm also an instructor with the Open Leadership Network, teaching the 8 patterns of open business agility. So for those of us who are unfamiliar with the work of the OLN, I would invite you to their website. There's a good amount of open material for your reference regarding the patterns undergirding enterprise agility. I also help lead the Agile Singapore user group of about 6,000 members today. And I also serve as the L&D director for the Malaysian Association of Certified Coaches. And yes, before diving into our conversation, I'd just like to invite everyone who is on the call now, if you could share, and I would like, since it's a small group here, I'd like, if possible, for everyone to share what your retros typically look like. So your sprint retrospective.
Yeah, you can now unmute yourself. And speak others. How your retros look like? Yeah.
Hi, Shitosh and Victor. This is Noor. Initially, when we start retros, we'll start with a great start, but over a period of time, with the same Scrum team continues, right, it becomes a formality sometimes. That's my experience.
But it just becomes a
A formality,
Formality.
formal,
It is just for
formality.
the sake of doing it, what he's
yes. That's really common. Oh, by the way, feel free to unmute your videos as well if you like, so that we can see
Yeah,
you.
I mean, if you can also come on video, that would really be great. I mean, Victor is one person I know he loves a lot personal interaction than slides. So yeah, thanks Noor for volunteering. Yeah, anyone else?
Lovely, share. Anyone else?
My time, Ramendra. My teams, we facilitate we choose a facilitator for each retro. So we bring in different flavors of different personal flavors of the retro. Yeah. So themes like Dungeon Dragons themes, retro, sometimes plain vanilla, what went well, and ideas for next sprint. Yeah, things like that. But I've done about 20 or 30 retros with this team, and kind of getting to the point where what Noor was mentioning.
Mm. Yes. Thanks, Pramendra. Can I have a follow-up question on that? What you just shared? Because you described now, I think what you are describing is that it's gotten something like it's becoming stale, right? It's
Yes.
Yeah.
so how does that show up in your retros?
Pardon, I didn't get that.
How does it show up that it's becoming stale?
Sometimes the participation, the kind of ideas for the action points are not, team is not that involved now like it used to be initially. So there are very few action points that we improvements that we see coming up.
I
Great.
just want to echo the same thing for Pramendra, right? People becomes right, okay. Like only few people will actively participate. The rest will echo the same points, right? Whatever they said, and the timelines, the debate and discussions is also will be minimal. Let's complete this one as early as possible. Let's move on. So we reached. I think generally we reached to that state.
Yes, thanks, Nuruddin. Exactly. This is what we all see so often in our careers and agile coaches and scrum masters. And this is actually what this session is precisely about. So this is lovely sharing from Nuruddin and Pramendra. What, at least in my interactions with my clients to date, that I've come to observe about retrospectives are that it loses value over time, interestingly. And I'll touch on this a bit more in the slides later, but as Scrum Masters, I urge everyone to look at our team as our, it's like our baby, our product, right? And it's vitally important that the team be able to continually deliver value to itself. And that means being able to continually improve. And for them to be able to improve, they need to have a capacity to introspect, right? And to be able to reflect upon their interactions as individuals within the team. And I'll be speaking to this point a lot deeper in this presentation, and hopefully it will be of value to our audience today. It addresses specifically this points that we touched on. So going back to the slides very briefly, right? And hopefully this is something that many of us can relate to as well. These are what retros tend to be, right? If you look at this page here, right? What went well and what didn't go well, for example. Sprint planning was fast and efficient. Pipeline finished on time. There's an environment separation. By the way, these examples are taken from real life sticky notes in my coaching with my clients. So I'm just redacting the names perhaps, but the situation and the scenarios are real. So data is available when needed, or we improved our DOD, right? And what didn't go well, could not finish regression testing. Only me who can do this work today, right? Underestimated my PBI. So for the eagle eye coaches here, right, in this room, notice that the stickies here tend to be very action oriented or very extrinsic in its nature. And to see why, I would invite everyone to visit the next set of stickies. Again, real stickies from real teams. Right? What went well? So this is what retros can be. Right? What went well? I actually asked for help. Right? I didn't manage to get through this PBI, so product backlog item. Right? Or Sheila offered to pair me. Ed owned up. Right? And for what didn't go well, right? I tried to help Jim resolve this by pairing him, but it was a really tough problem. Right? Nothing actually stopped me from doing XX, but somehow I did not get around to it. Or, look at this white sticky, I didn't warn Jane, the PO, early enough that this PBI wouldn't make it in time. Or I, the product owner, stated the priority or understated the priority of a certain product backlog item. Or I, as a Scrum Master, didn't actually understand the impediment reported by Claire. All right, so we'll take a quick pause again here. Can anyone share with us, the group, what we observed to be different in the second set of stickies? Anyone?
As per me, right, we clearly specify the role, SM, PO. So they voluntarily they mentioned their names there, PO, SM.
Yes.
My observation.
There's a lot of collaboration happening, even though it's not, I mean, try to help him, there's a lot of appreciation.
Yeah.
So that's the positive thing that I can see, even though sometimes they don't succeed, but they're owning up and there's some openness also.
Lovely. Anything else?
I can see there are a lot of behavioral things we can change on this action item. I mean, by reading this, I can see there is a lot of improvement we can do as a team member. So the behavioral things we can change it and we can take it up as an action item. Yeah.
Lovely. Thanks, Sunita. Yes. Anyone else? Nuruddin, do you want to mention something? As you unmute.
Yeah. So as we can easily derive the action item by seeing the sticky notes directly, right? Instead of debate and discussion, right? We know the point. I think with a minor, like a minimal discussion, we can derive the action item.
Yes. And what's the reason for that?
We have clearly emphasized the problem here. What was the problem? It's easy to understand. That's my understanding here.
Okay. Anyone else would like to chime in, Sunita?
Yeah, I think that earlier it was like we are talking about the stories, but now we come across first the root cause of that why it was not gone well. So we know the root cause why it has happened. So the action item is we can derive the action item directly.
Yes.
That's what I understand.
Right, Sunita. So follow-up question, quick one. What do we think is the reason that the root cause can be gotten to in this set of stickies?
Because people retrospect their work and team members' work. They actually literally go into the story and retrospect why it didn't go well. It's not like, I mean, just like the stories didn't go well. It's like why actually it didn't go well if coordination is there. there is a gap in between coordination, or I have not done well, so that retrospect their work. So that's a good point actually.
Right, exactly. Thank you, Sunita. Lovely point. So yes, that's it. What Sunita mentioned, and I will paraphrase and summarize as well, is that if we observe how the second set of stickies come across, people are taking responsibility for what's going on, whether it's good or not so good, right? They would actually say that that's something that they could have done, but they didn't, right? And that's incredibly powerful, right? Owning up to the problem without a sense of being judged or being blamed for outcomes is a key enabler of team improvement, right? Teams can't improve if they are in a state of stress or if they fear judgment from their fellow colleagues or managers or whomever it may be in the organization. Now, it's often easy to just describe all of this under the umbrella term of psychological safety in the Amy Edmondson sense. But in this session, I'd like to share how to actually get at that level of vulnerability on each individual member's part, so that actual real introspection and reflection can happen within the team, and real action, as you see on the sticky note, can actually happen, right? And the way to frame this, right, think about the sprint review being a window into our product, essentially, right? The sprint retrospective really is a window into our team. And in order for that window to be able to be opened up, is for us as coaches to stay truly curious, meaning non-judgmental, not making assumptions, or not coming to quick conclusions about what's happening, right? And to continually hold space for the team. Most of us will be familiar with this Patrick Lencioni's 5 dysfunction of a team. It's important to take a look at, but it will not be the focus of this presentation. I'm including it here just for a quick review or recap, right, around low functioning behavior in teams. Right. However, what I'd like to turn your attention to that's really important, and I suspect most of us would have already came across the work of the responsibility process by Christopher Avery, right? Now, people really do tend to move up this process in the manner that's shown here, right? In low trust environments, any mention of something that's not going well, right, would either be managed through denial or blame. For more well-functioning individuals, they may justify, right, which is, in other words, is rationalize the outcomes, right, why things are the way they are. And a blunt way to put this is giving excuses, right, or giving reasons. But as we become increasingly self-aware individuals, we start feeling other emotions, right, which is we feel a sense of shame or self-blame on certain negative outcomes, right? And if we don't manage that in a healthy or a productive manner, we may quit, meaning we may leave the situation, right, because the stress is too much to bear. Or we may overcome it with a sense of obligation because we feel like we're obliged to continue carrying out the work or obliged to take responsibility. But what's really empowering is when we actually get into the state of responsibility. And what does this mean? This means owning the outcomes. Whether the outcomes are good or bad, we own them. We take ownership of the risk of whatever happens as a result of our decision. And this is high functioning behavior. And I framed something a little beyond the responsibility process, right? Which is what you've essentially observed in the sticky notes earlier with what retrospectives can be, right? And this would be that the team member would be able to acknowledge the reality, right? The reality perhaps being that he or she didn't do enough or didn't do well enough. And what could he or she have done better in the sprint that would not have allowed this to happen, right? And then owning the problem, finding the solution, and last but not least, actually taking action upon doing something about it, right? Essentially doing something about it, right? After having this level of self-awareness. So this is one of the other things, right? We observe very often in Agile coaching or, the Scrum Master role is the proclivity for the Scrum Master to focus on the issue and not the person, right? So we sort of frame it as be on the issue, not on the person. And why do we say that? We say that because we don't want to offend or risk offending team members, right? But as many of us would know, if we keep doing this for an extended period of time, what we essentially get to is a state of artificial harmony, right? And the fear of offending our team members instead stifle our ability to grow together as one. So this is something that's uncomfortable to do for most coaches, right? How do we challenge team members and allow them to challenge us without feeling violated or offended, right? There's a lot of techniques behind this, including the manner in which we give feedback, including the manner in which we facilitate and invite participatory decision making. But what's important is that each of us need to be cognizant to be bold and be willing to be challenged, and also to be willing to challenge others, right? And this is where coaching really comes in, right? Why is it that so many of these larger certification bodies strongly advocate for Scrum Masters to have good coaching skills, right? Because while many of us would like to say that Agile coaching isn't the same as professional coaching, it's very much the case that its foundation is based in professional coaching, right? And let's explore that for a bit here. In the coaching mastery level, right, which is the MCC level, or in Scrum Alliance speak, it will be the CTC or CEC level. It's important for us to understand what servant leadership means as a coach, right? Which today in the Scrum Guide is phrased differently, as we know, but it's still relevant, the ability to serve the team as a leader. And it's these roles that's indicated in this slide, which I've extracted from the work of Dr. Michael Hiao, an MCC, right? The master, the partner, the inquirer, the reflector, the facilitator, the mentor, and the performer. Now, it's as if all of us already know this, right? We know that as an Agile coach, we need to possess these wide and varied skills around coaching, mentoring, and training, facilitating, and whatnot. What's important is that we need to base our mother stance as a coach and not as others, right? Too frequently we see Agile coaches or Scrum Masters going into teams behaving much more like a teacher or a mentor. And that often doesn't work well, right? And we'll go into that for a bit later on if we have time. But I'd like to invite everyone to explore these 6 stances in detail here around how to approach situational coaching. Right. The main role is the master role, right? Which is essentially described by these 5 points, right? Of a high or keen sense of self-awareness on the coach's part, right? What does the coach need to watch out for about him or herself in his or her approach to the team, right? How do we listen intuitively, not just deeply or whole body listening here, but intuitive? It's like our coach being is completely integrated into ourselves as an individual. And as we interact with our colleagues and our teams, how do we continually serve them as coaches, and in the process creating and holding that space that we talked about earlier, right? How do we facilitate learning? How do we embrace empathy, right? Which is really important. Our biases, our own biases and our lenses and judgments, how do we cast that aside, right? And then decide and act, right? That's also the hard part. The second is the partner. And this, again, just an observation, I see this being glossed over so often in Scrum teams, right? It's really important at the outset of engaging a team as a fresh Scrum Master and an Agile coach, right? To actually ask the team what they want this coaching journey to be able to do for them, right? Get that explicit agreement. And establish outcomes, right? How do they know when they have achieved their goal as a team? And this is not the product goal, right? This is a self-improvement goal of the team. And then agree on roles. Again, something we don't do all that often. For this, I'd like to turn everyone's attention to decision rights, right? Because even though we advocate for Scrum teams to have cross-functional composition, right? In reality, most of the conflict happens where the decision boundaries are. So who is responsible for making what decisions, including pushing to production or being responsible for code review or anything like this, right? All of these should have been compacted through a team agreement at the outset. And that will help smoothen the entire coaching intervention a great deal. Next, the inquirer. A deeper understanding of our client's situation, right? And this is a question of appreciative inquiry, right? What is happening for you now, right? The reason we ask this is because too often teams in firefighting mode have a great deal to complain about, right? And it's our human tendency to want to focus on the messiness around us, right? To try to get that entropy out and to resolve all that chaos. But rarely do we stop to think about what's already going well for us. How far have we come along as a team? How much progress have we made as a collective, right? And pat ourselves on the back for that, right? So questions of appreciative inquiry are intended to draw gratefulness from individuals, and that can be incredibly powerful in helping people become better with one another, right? I'd like to take a bit of a segue here to a team coaching intervention that I've had with the client as well. There's a client group that was ethnically and culturally diverse that I've worked with, and one of the heads up that I was given was that conflicts occurred really frequently in this team because of their cultural differences. And when I say cultural differences, I'm referring to personality traits, right? Like how they expressed or manifest their disagreeableness right? As we know, as Asians, we tend to be more introverted and reserved in our approach to conversations, and that isn't necessarily the approach undertaken by other cultures. For example, there's also power distance, subservience to people whom we report to, right? And the notion of giving face, right? That's really important in Asian cultures that the Western cultures aren't necessarily familiar with. So in approaching this team, we thought to do things a little differently, right? By starting out with a 1 hour sharing for the team. For the 8 team members that were there in diverse cultures, right? We invited every member to share with us what he or she thought was the most lovely thing about one of the other members' cultures, right? Maybe it's a culture of thankfulness, it's a culture of great food, or strong familial ties, the conservative values, whatever it may be. But after that 1 hour, as we would imagine, people started thinking very differently about one another. Now, bear in mind, these are the same group of people that have worked together for about 3 months at that time. So what's the reason they have been so focused on the conflict? And that's brought them into this vicious cycle of conflicting upon with one another sprint after sprint, right? Making the sprint retrospective an incredibly unpleasant event as a result, right? Because there was a lack of appreciation. Right, so coming back to this inquirer, again, not all of us are articulate at our desired outcomes, so it's important to actually ask. And those of us who are OKR trained would be familiar with this, right? It's really important to be able to formulate what we consider as a meaningful objective, right? And attainable key results. And then establish courses of action, right? And in the mindset of agility, again, empiricism, what is one small thing that we can actually do, right? Instead of a moonshot. What can we do today to make ourselves better than we were yesterday, right? Role 4, reflector. Some of us may be familiar with the notion that Scrum is not a silver bullet. It is a silver mirror, right? So exactly this, right? The raising of transparency is what we really need to embody as a coach, right? How do we help our coachees or our clients reflect upon their time, right, with the team? Facilitator. Those of us who have been Scrum Masters before, which I suspect might be everyone, facilitation is really important. And why is that, right? Because in diverse cultures, in the example that I've given, not everyone speaks or gets heard at the same level as others, right? And it's important to be equally considerate to everyone's opinions and views in a Scrum team in order for it to be well functioning. Number 6, mentor, right? The one we often like to do over being a coach, right? Now, my guidance around moving away from the mentor role is this, right? Especially for mentor coaches, maybe less so for Scrum Masters, is that before giving advice to a team, consider how we may be responsible for the outcome of that advice, right? I use this example a lot about our parents liking to tell us what to study in university, right? Even if it may not be a degree that we liked. Now, something that confused me for the longest time was, why was it that we needed to honor that opinion when our parents don't really experience the outcome of that decision, right? So our decision to follow such direction from our parents really come from other things such as our family values and filial piety, right? But in a professional environment, such as in the workplace, right, it cannot work like that, right? If whatever advice we give to teams result in an outcome that we don't take accountability for, then we are not really in the position to advise, right? Rather, well, maybe let me correct that. We are not in a position to inflict advice onto the team, right? So the way to approach this would be instead to invite the team to consider the advice or the options that we give to them and let them decide which one they want to go with, right? And help them own the outcomes, right? So this is the part, right, that's often not sufficiently or given sufficient treatment in our practice as Agile coaches. Right? So role 7, performer, which is really the action part, and I think most of us will be familiar with, right? Getting commitment from the team, right? How ready are they to take action on the new item described in the retro, right? And helping them remove impediments and tracking their progress, right? So yeah, that was a lot in there. So I believe that might have provoked thoughts in many of us. So I'm happy to take any questions here at this point. Please ask away.
Yeah, one request, when you're asking a question, if you can come on a camera, that would be great. Yeah, any questions so far for Victor? Yeah, anyone, any questions? Quick, I hope we are audible.
Yes, sir. Victor, this is Noor again. I have one question. So it's a great, right? There's a new concept, the seven servant coach roles. At least it's new for me. But as a Scrum Master, right, we generally perform either a mentor or a master or sometimes kind of a performer, right? So because right, generally the Scrum Master is completely neutral. I will not be support either a development or a testing. See, here in this concept of performer, in which area we need to reflect or in what way we need to perform. It's more on performer role as a Scrum Master.
Yes. So great question. We perform as what we do with coaches, which is to affirm commitment on our team members' part.
Okay.
Yes, getting them to commit in the right way and helping them track progress, removing impediments along the way.
Okay, thanks, Victor. It's a great one. Thanks for sharing that.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for the question. Anyone else? Yes, please unmute and ask away.
This reflector is kind of interesting for me because the right kind of questions that can trigger that reflection process in So these questions like, may I share something what I've noticed? What do you think about this? Just today I had this opportunity about asking a reflective question. I had framed it differently, then I converted to a reflective question. So, for example, our testers tested bug fixes in SIT and deployed the code in production. Not production, sorry, UAT, and then moved the card back to the UAT column. So I asked this question, should we test it in SIT and UAT again? What are the benefits? Or what pros and cons do you see in testing in SIT and UAT at the same, for the same defect fix? So it's kind of.
Yes. Pramendra, so great example here. around testing in UAT. I like to, if I can, I'd like to follow up with the question here, right? What do you observe about that question that was asked, that you just demonstrated?
It helps them consider kind of lean way of working. That was my intention, you know. So
Lean way of working.
lean, not to waste. Or my intention was to help them understand. If you have done it in SIT, you don't need to UAT, test it again in UAT. You just concentrate whether features are working fine in UAT. So that was my intention of asking them.
Mm-hmm. And how was the team's response?
There was no response.
Right. And what do you think might be the reason for that?
So we have an impending release coming up. So I think they were too busy, or they usually do respond. So I think they were too busy.
Okay, thank you. Well, so this is some parts of thanks for the scenario, by the way, Pramendra. So situations like that are contextual. But what I'd like to bring everyone's attention to, because this is a lovely example, it's a development situations. We ask questions around the problem, which is, could you do this here, or could you do this there, right? Or what is good about doing this here, and what's good about doing this there, right? Similar to pros and cons, which Pramendra, I think your example was around. Instead, right, I'd like to invite everyone to consider this, which is, I'm gonna skip here, right? This thing, coaching the person and not the issue, right? So as Scrum Masters, it's kind of difficult to get away all the time from coaching the issue, so to speak, right? Because we are we're in the business of delivery, right? Or refining our ability to deliver. However, as we have observed from the retrospective sessions, right? And this is really the key of what happens during retrospectives. Our job is to help the team raise their awareness. And the only way to do that, in my experience, is if we coach the person, not the issue. Now, remember, we talked about the mantra of be on the issue, not on the person, right? This is therefore an anti-pattern, right? What we really want to do is to be on the person, not the issue. So to give some examples, right? What are coaching the person related questions like, right? It's more around intrinsic questions about the person's motivation or purpose. So for example, what can adopting this new practice do for you? How can that help you achieve your goal? So let's use pair programming as an example, right? Perhaps two individuals in a team are contemplating pair programming, but haven't quite gotten around to it being a permanent arrangement because of other discomforts, let's say. So the key here is getting the both of them to actually reflect and decide upon if this is for them, and then becoming a performer, helping them commit to it, right? And how do we help them find out whether this was something that they really wanted? We need to coach them, right? So we don't ask questions such as, is pair programming going to improve the quality of your code? Right? Is pair programming going to help you get work done faster? Is it going to help with documenting faster? Those are issue-based questions, right? What we want to ask is, right, so what is your purpose as developers of pair programming with each other? What can pairing with him or her, how can pairing with him or her serve you in your career or serve you in your intention in becoming a better developer? Or serve him or her in whatever he or she desires to achieve as an intrinsic outcome, right? One of the mantra that we always speak of in facilitation or group process facilitation is what's in it for me, right? Because every individual, as much as we try to avoid saying so, right, there always has to be something in it for us, right, that will serve as our intrinsic motivation, and that undergirds our purpose, right, being in this organization in the first place, right? So coach the person, not the issue. So to the example, Pramendra, that I just shared around UAT testing in different environments, right? My guidance would be to consider how you would approach the team with purpose-based questions. Purpose for themselves as individuals, as real people, real living, breathing human beings, right? And not about how to get work done more efficiently with less error and lower risk and so forth, right? So I'm going to take a quick pause here for a moment of interaction. Anyone has thoughts to share or questions to ask? I'm conscious of time because we have just 12 minutes. So please ask away. Please ask away.
Yeah, I think someone was asking. Anyone with a question?
Yeah, hi, Victor.
Hi,
I have a question. Actually, I'm new in this Scrum Master. I'm trying to get a job. So I have a question that if the team size is already decided, or as a Scrum Master, do we decide the team size of of the Agile?
Okay, lovely. Well, if we had more time, I'd like to invite everyone to share their thoughts on this lovely question. But in the interest of time, I'm just going to ask you, Kavisha, right? Regarding the team size, or the decision of the team size rather, who do you think should make it based on what you know?
So, I was asked in the interview that, whether only 2 developers are there and whole 100 points are given to them, suppose it's all, and there is nobody in the team who can do it. And there is no extra people whom I can allocate the work also. So in that case, of course, we need extra people, extra developers to complete that work. But then in the middle of the sprint, I can't decide, of course, but do I need to suggest them that they need extra developers, or I just told them that, we can move the stories to the next sprint. If we can't complete it, it will go into the product backlog. So we can give a suggestion, but we are in the starting of the sprint, there is project managers, product owners, they all do a meeting and then they decide the team size as per my thinking.
Okay. So can I share a couple of observations here?
Yeah.
So we do know that Scrum teams should be self-managing, correct? What does it say if someone else is making a decision around the composition of the team for the team?
I didn't get that properly.
Let me ask this again. What would this say about this, right? If someone else is making a decision on the team size on behalf of the team?
Someone else is making.
You mentioned product owners, right?
Correct.
So let us say, Kavisha, that actually the decision on the team size is not being taken by the team, but by someone else. Someone is forcing that decision. or someone is taking. That is what Victor is trying to hint at.
Okay.
So he's asking, what do you think if that happens?
Yes.
It will not go accordingly. I mean, of course, the team size self-organize. You are saying like, I mean, the project manager, the managers will ultimately decide about the team size, right?
So there's a distinction between, yes, but there's a distinction between deciding and inviting the team to actually think, to actually decide, right? There's nothing stopping managers from delegating authority to the team. And that includes the composition of the team to begin with. But as Ashutosh would also probably be sharing the same thoughts as most of us in this room would, none of this would be in the purview of the Scrum Master to begin with.
Okay. So Scrum Masters are not the one who decides the team size.
Not in any form of Scrum Mastery that I'm familiar with, no.
Victor, just Kavish, I want to share here, but just to answer, like as per Scrum guide, we have some limitation left, the maximum people in the Scrum. But again, it's up to the team to decide. But we have the standard guidelines from the Scrum guide, so we need to have the maximum less than or equal to 10, right? If a Scrum team. And to come to the decision, in a generally, right, in a service-based organization, right, the people will decide, okay, let's put 2 developers and the 3 testers or 1 PO or 1 BA like that. So because we don't have any choice for the Scrum Master to, but if we empower the team as empower the team, right, they can decide after one sprint, okay, we are missing this skill, either we need to get another developer, another QA. They can bring this into a retro, so the Scrum Master can do the recommendation. That's what my thought.
Correct. Suggestion we can put, but of course we are not the deciders. Okay. I was asking that initially, like when the project is starting, at that time, who decides? Like the team is not developed yet, is not joined, a new team is there. So that time.
Yes, this is the reason why organizations often need guides to help them understand why teams are the way they should be, ideally. Now, one of the things about the Scrum Guide that I like to bring everyone's attention to is that it is a perfect point. It is an ideal, right? An ideal is often unreachable, but it serves as an incredibly good reference, right? So those of us reading the Scrum Guide really shouldn't be reading it at face value as if it's prescribing a certain way to do things, right? To your point, Nurudin, is it that important to stick to the Scrum Guide as, like, you know, it's like it's a rule book rather than a guide, right? I mean, ultimately, what's important is that, in my estimation at least, is that there needs to be a platform, an avenue for the team to be able to inspect and reflect upon what has happened in sprints, right? And to be able to come up with improvements in a meaningful way. Now, I personally, I do not agree with Scrum Master suggesting things to the team. Reason being that it's not our position to influence. When we do influence people, we are impacting their ability to self-organize because they depend on you to make a suggestion, right? What we want to do is to enable them to become increasingly capable at self-organizing and self-managing. All right. So again, I'm conscious of time. We just have 5 minutes. Can I go through the tips that I'd like to share with everyone?
Thank you so much, Victor.
It's my pleasure.
Thanks, Kavisha, for asking the question. Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks, Ashutosh. Yeah.
So my guidance, at least as Agile coaches, as Scrum Master, is to start from a place of service, right? Which is to ask these 3 questions for new teams that we engage in, right? What do you want to be better in? How would you like me to support you? And how do you know when you are a great team? All of these, in my experience, have been very important questions. Even the last one, because there's no knowing whether a team has actually achieved their goals if it was not even defined to begin with, right? And quick tips, right? To be able to coach others, it is really necessary to first be a good self-coach. And by self-coach, I'm not saying to coach yourself, right? But rather to have the capacity to reflect and introspect how you could have come across better, where you didn't do so well in how you engaged people, right? And so forth. Second, invest in professional coaching. Again, strong guidance here. Third, I've already talked about coaching the person, not the issue. Fourth, we sort of alluded to earlier in this presentation, we need courage to challenge our clients to improve and also challenge our own understanding of things, right? It's really easy for one to fall into a state of sustained ego, and that's not helpful in our capacity to improve over time, right? So continually challenge yourself with some healthy self-doubt. I stress the word healthy. Give time and space to our team. Don't force them, right? Don't push them to do things. Make real connections, right, with your people, within and outside the team, right? Sincerely and authentically. Learn improv, right? For those of us who are not familiar with improv, right? Improv stands for improvisation. It is actually the ultimate tool of personal agility, if you think about it, right? So this actually comes in really handy as a Scrum Master. Please do consider learning it. Now, number 8 would be more for Scrum Masters, right? Mix things up with various facilitation techniques, right? So we don't always have to stick to the old boring formats, especially if we are engaging in a creative endeavor such as ideation. It's usually more helpful to design an open event that is more loosely structured and time boxed, but has an overarching theme about what you want to achieve, right? So liberating structures such as 1-2-4-all and fishbowl of open space agility, open space technology would be particularly useful in this regard. 9, integrate invitation into what we do. So sort of in answering some of our questions earlier around how we approach teams, right? Invite them to make a decision rather than impose our views on them. That includes making suggestions to the team, right? What we want to try to do is to put options out there instead, options 1, 2, 3 or more, but you as a team assess for yourself and decide, and when you make a decision, be able to own the outcomes of that decision, right? That's incredibly empowering. And 10, number 1 of the Agile Manifesto, right? Individuals and interactions over processes and tools, right? Fight the company's urge to impose processes on the teams, right? And consider the interactions that we have with everyone else instead. All right, so that's it on my end. Thank you. Very quickly, if you are interested, I teach the ICF Level 1 program, which is the ICF Associate Certified Coach program at Visionary Agility. I'm happy to offer everyone a 10% discount. Just email me and my email or scan the QR code there. And yeah, if we still have time to take questions, I'll be happy to. Thanks, Ashutosh, for hosting me.
No, I think, Victor, it was a really wonderful talk. And yeah, I especially like the last 10 points. And the 10th point again brings me back to the first point of the Agile Manifesto. So which is what I liked, the way you have correlated it. Yeah, we can take maybe one question here. I mean, if anyone still has any question. Yeah, I see Noor has raised. Oh, Noor has raised a thumbs up. I thought he has raised a hand. Thanks, Noor. Yeah. Anyone else?
I
Yeah,
take
go
30
ahead.
seconds, Ashutosh. It's a great session, Victor, and it's a new perspective for us. And thanks for hosting this, Ashutosh. I really appreciate
Sure.
it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Any quick questions? Okay. Yeah, you can always connect with Victor. I mean, I see him always in all the conferences. I mean, so in fact, Victor, I don't know. I was in Nepal when you were delivering the regional Scrum gathering in Nepal. So I attended your session that time in the conference room. And then I think last week you were also, I think you were also in one of the conferences. I remember last week, if I'm not, Scrum gathering Hyderabad. That's where you were in. Great. Yeah, I was speaker. You'll always find him in some conferences or the other, and do reach out to him for more learning or more insights. Okay, so on behalf of Pune Agile thought leaders, I know, I would like to just give a small token of appreciation to you, Victor. Thanks for coming to our community and presenting. This is a small token of appreciation and gratitude. And yeah, I know it's Singapore, so it's already midnight, almost midnight we are in, but really appreciate your zeal and passion in delivering this. And thanks, team, for the wonderful questions you asked. I hope you had an exciting Friday evening to kickstart your weekend. So yeah, I think, Victor, we are good to close then if there are no further questions. And once again, appreciate your gesture in coming and talking here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ashutosh. It's an absolute pleasure. Thanks everyone for having me, and Ashutosh for hosting.
Thanks. Yeah,
Thank
sure. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, bye. Have a great weekend. Yeah.
you too. Thank you.